Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and in this follow along, let's take a look at Security Token Service, also known as STS, so that we know how to generate out temporary credentials. I have this repository called AWS Examples that I'm going to continue to use, and where everything is going to be. I like to use Gitpod, use whichever cloud developer environment that you like to use, but understand that my environment already has a lot of tools already loaded into it. So if you don't have those tools, you're going to have to install them yourself. So we're waiting for that to spin up. And now that we're in here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder here. And this one is going to be for API. And it'll be all the API stuff that I do. I might make a video that is in the that comes before this, where this folder already exists. So just understand when I'm making these videos, they're not in a particular order. I'm just shooting them, getting them all done, but hopefully you'll find where all the videos are. Anyway, so I'm going to make a new folder in here, and this is going to be for STS. And, we can authenticate with STS either using the CLI, which is a very easy way, but we can also do this using the SDK. But we'll just go ahead and create ourselves a new README file so we can get started, because there's a couple things that we're going to need before we even think about doing STS. The first thing is that we're going to need a role, as we always need to assume a role, at least when we're going to use the AssumeRole command for STS. And so I think that will be the first thing we need to do. So we'll say create a role. And maybe what we could do is use CloudFormation for that, because I always like to get us as much practice with everything else as we can. So I'm going to go here and just say template.yaml. And we'll go ahead and create ourselves some CloudFormation. So we'll just go ahead and type in CloudFormation. And I'll just say template here, as I want to just get the starting stuff for it. Over here, I think it is. And looking for that introduction example, working with templates. Here it is, template formats. And so we always start with this template format version. I'm going to say allow. And then the next thing I want to do is put a description in here and say paste. So what are we doing here? Create a role for us to assume. And create a resource we'll have access to. Okay, so there's a couple things that I want to create here. The first is going to be the role. So in order to create the role, we'll have to create that under a resource. And again, if you're not that familiar with CloudFormation, don't worry, just follow along the best you can, as we'll get a lot of exposure throughout the course. And there is a CloudFormation section where we will go into the stuff in detail. So under resources, we need to have something for a role. So I can just type in CloudFormation, IAM role, and hopefully we can get a nice and easy example here. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to click examples, and down below we have the JSON example, then we have the YAML example. And so what I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead and copy this here. This one looks good. It says root role, but we're going to change that. And I'm going to just paste that in here. Okay. And so it says root role, but we're creating a role to be used for STS. I'm just going to call this STS role. And carefully looking at this, let's do this for S3. So we want to set up our service to allow us to have access to S3. And we're going to assume a role. And then down below, we need some permissions. So in our permissions, we'll just name the policy as S3 access. And we're going to get access to a very specific S3 bucket. And we'll allow it for all actions. So what I'm thinking here is we need to place an S3 ARN. So I believe it's going to be ARN : AWS : S3 : I'm just going to double check and look at what that format is. So we'll say S3 ARN format, sorry. And there should be an example here. Yeah, it looks like that. And it is three colons and then the name of it. So what I'll do here is just put a bucket name. So the idea is that we're going to need to name a bucket. I'm not sure what it is yet, so I'm just going to put sub in here for now. And I'm going to put up a parameter in here. And this parameter is going to be bucket name. And I'm just going to say this is a type string. Okay, and then I'm just going to give it a default value. And I'm just going to say something random here. So I'm going to say STS fun. And then I'm going to put AB and then a few numbers here on the end. So we have a unique name. And then using interpolation, well, I'll probably do doubles around this. I think we want doubles around this or singles. I can just do this, and then we get bucket name. Okay, and so that should allow us to get S3 access to this very specific bucket. Often when you're doing permissions for S3, you might have to do both. So like when we're doing the all action, so we're going to give access to the bucket itself, and then all the objects within the bucket. So I'm just going to do that, and that's going to be good for us. And just carefully looking at this, yeah, we can assume role here as our action. And then we have our S3 Amazon.com. So that looks all good to me. Okay. So I guess the next thing is it would probably be useful if we were attempting to get access to resources for a user that wouldn't normally have those permissions. So the thing is that like right now in my account, I have loaded in administrator mode. So even if I was to assume this role, it's no different than me trying to access it because I already have full permission. So to make full effect of this demo, we should really create a new user that we're going to temporarily use in this here. And that's going to allow us to simulate that. So the first thing is create a user with no permissions. So we need to create a new user with no permissions and generate out access keys. Okay, then we need to create a role and a resource, a role that will access a new resource. Okay, and so that's what we're doing via the CloudFormation here. And then we need to then use new user credentials and assume role. So those are the 3 steps that we are going to attempt to do here. So let's go ahead and create our user. So we are making CloudFormation here, and this looks like it's already set up. So I think this is in good shape. So next thing is to create a user. We can obviously do that through the IAM console. I would like to see if we can make it through the CLI terminal here. So I'm going to go ahead and type in AWS CLI IAM. And in here, we have create user, so that's perfect. We're gonna go down to examples. And so here we can create a user very quickly. So I'm just gonna go ahead and create a user. This one is going to be called, what should we call this user? I'm gonna call this one STS machine user. I do this often is I'll have machine users, which are for very specific use cases. Let's go see if we can go ahead and create that. Before we do, let's check if there's any other stuff that we can add here, because it'd be really nice to turn on programmatic access. I don't think we do it here. I think that's a separate command. So let's go ahead and create this user. We'll type in clear here and hit enter. And so that's going to go ahead and create ourselves a user. I'm going to go over to IAM and go take a look here. Yeah, no issue with the hyphens there. So here is our user, STS machine user. Notice there are no permissions attached. Notice that we have yet to grant it any or generate out any access keys for it. So we will go back over to IAM and let's see if we can get it credentials. So I'm going to type in credentials here and see what I get. Oh, it actually has access keys, so that seems to be more what we would want. I'm going to go down to examples, and it's as simple as that. Okay. I keep expecting this to be a little bit more complex, but it is not. I'm going to assume this is going to download this to somewhere here. Actually, it outputs it here. So one thing that we can do is we can make sure that we get the output in a way that is more friendly. So I'm going to just change this to table. Just say output table. And then that way we can grab these values here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and hit enter. And so now we have these values. Of course, you are seeing mine, but do not share your values with anybody else, as that is not a great idea. I want to temporarily apply these environment variables. So I'm just thinking about this for a moment, because I don't want to use them right away. I'm using, again, environment variables because in cloud developer environments, they don't really like using credential files, because when you stop the environment, that file will be gone. But for this case, I think we can actually go ahead and create a credentials file. And so that's something that I would like to do. So what I'm going to do is just type in AWS configure. And I'm actually going to enter this stuff in place here. So we have this one here. Whoops. Right click, copy. I'm just going to paste it here, make sure I have it. Just to make this a lot easier. Okay, and I'm going to go copy this and hit enter. And then copy this and hit enter. The default region, we'll leave it alone. Output format, we'll leave that alone. And so that's all set up. And I'm just going to document that. So then we'll say AWS configure. Copy the access key and secret here. Then edit credentials file to change away from default profile. Okay. So I'm just going to type in clear here. And if I type in STS, AWS STS, get caller identity, we can see who we are. So notice here that I'm AWS examples. I'm not this user. And test who you are. Okay. And so the idea here is that I want to just make sure I am who I think I am. And so I'm going to go ahead and type in profile. I'm going to say STS. So what we'll do is we'll go and update that profile file. And that lives at, it should live at your root directory here. So if I type in, I think I type open here and actually open it right in place. If I go here and type AWS and do credentials, we should be able to see that. Go ahead and paste that in up here. Okay. I will go ahead and hit enter. We'll notice that we have those values. I'm going to go ahead and change this to STS. And so now we have a profile called STS that we can try to work with. So what we'll do is go ahead and copy this, hit enter. And notice now it's using that machine user, okay? This machine user, again, does not have permission for S3. So if I go here and type in AWS S3 LS, and we do profile STS, notice I don't have access to it, right? Make sure you don't have access to S3. Okay? So we should see something like this. So the idea is that by creating this role, then we can then assume it and be able to access that bucket. So what we'll need to do is create ourselves a new bin file. Or sorry, new folder here called bin. And in here, I'm going to make a new file here called deploy. And we're going to want this to be a executable bash script. So somewhere in here, I already have some existing code to get this top line. I never remember what it is. You think I'd know by now. And so that's going to make this this whole script be interpreted as bash. And so the idea is that now we can go ahead and set up our deployment of the script. So we'll go back over to the CLI command. And then from here, I'm going to go to AWS. And we're going to search for CloudFormation. And then there should be a deploy command here. There is like a create stack one. That's the old way of doing it. They made this one here, and it's the recommended way to utilize it. So I'm going down to examples. Here is an example here. I'll go and paste it in. And what we'll do is bring this down a line, and then we'll use backslash to bring these onto new lines. Okay. And we don't need to pass any parameters. We don't need any tags. We will need a stack name. So I'm going to just call this my STS fun stack, you know. And then the template JSON is going to be up one directory. So I think that we need to do that. I always kind of forget. It's either going to work or it's not. And we'll just tweak it. And so that should deploy it. It might want permissions in order to deploy the stack. There also might be something wrong with our CloudFormation file, but we'll find out here in a moment. Let's cd into the API STS directory here. I'm going to type in clear. And let's go ahead and see if we can, well, before we can execute our script, we need to make it executable. So we're going to chmod that with a u plus x on that. That's going to put this x on here. So if we look at our, I have to actually cd into the directory, otherwise we're not going to see its contents. But if we look at this here, notice that there's an x here. That's what we did. We added that x to make it executable. So now if we do period/bin and then do deploy, it should be able to deploy. I'm assuming that there's something wrong here. So it doesn't know where this file is. So I assumed it was relative to this file, but I think if we just take this out here, it will know where to go. You can hard code or tell it to look relatively or absolute in this file. Sometimes I do that. I'm just trying to keep it really simple here, so we'll just hit enter. But if we try to use this script in other places, we run into issues. This is an example of where we need additional permissions. So this happens quite often with CloudFormation deployments. A lot of times I'll just leave these permissions in place. So if we go over to capabilities, this one has to be capable of some level of stuff. So it's either between capability IAM or named IAM. And I mean, we are creating an IAM role, so that kind of makes sense. This one wants IAM. So what we'll do is we'll go here and copy this. Why it doesn't seamlessly work, I don't know. I kind of forget. I just kind of get used to just pasting this in and making sure it works. So we'll go ahead and paste that in here. I'm going to type in clear. We're going to hit up, do bin deploy again. And so hopefully it will deploy, or it'll tell us what's wrong with our CloudFormation script, as we didn't validate or do anything else with it. So as it's deploying, let's make our way over to CloudFormation. Okay. And it's in progress. We're going to give this a refresh here. We'll click into it. We'll go to resources. Often I will do this, or I'll go to events and I'll click here. If there's a problem, it will show up in here. I think CloudFormation is getting better at detecting root cause, which is really nice. But apparently my role was perfect. I didn't have to tweak anything there, so that's really nice. Let's go and take a look at that role. So if we go to resources here, we should be able to click through to it. And if we go here, we can take a look at the trust relationship. So this is what we wrote in here earlier. So if we go back to our code, I wasn't 100% confident, but oh, it is. This is the trust policy here. So see here, we are saying we want to trust that we have access to S3 and that we're allowed to assume role to S3. Okay. So what I want to do now is get access to that role. I guess the question is, do I need permissions to assume roles? Because this says that we can assume role to S3, but can my current user even make use of this? And that's what we're going to find out. Let's go also check if that bucket exists. Oh, you know what? We didn't even create a bucket here. So we have a bucket name, but we never created a bucket. So let's go ahead and create that. So I'm going to type in bucket, CloudFormation. Okay. And we'll go over here. And on the right-hand side, we'll go to examples, and we'll copy this simple example, and then we'll paste this above our role. All right. And then from here, I need to reference my bucket name. So let's say ref bucket name. This one uses substitute because we are substituting within a string. We're using reference here. I think buckets by default return the bucket name. We always have to check when we use a reference, it is using the bucket name. Sometimes you have to use get ATT for get attribute to get what you want. In this case, it's totally fine. I don't want to retain the bucket. I just want it gone when we're not using it. So I took out the retention there. I'll type in clear, and we'll go ahead and deploy again. So this should start automatically deploying. I normally will tell it to not automatically approve change sets, as I like to go in here and approve them manually to make sure I know what is changing. But for this small example, it's not a big deal. We'll go to stack info, we can refresh, watch it deploy. We can go to events, refresh, watch it deploy. Buckets create usually pretty quickly here. But I'll just pause here and I'll wait till it's done, okay? Literally 1 minute later and it is completely done. No issues whatsoever. So our bucket is now deployed. If you had issues with your bucket, just understand that these names are unique. You might have to fiddle with this to get this to work correctly. It's interesting. It should be done here, but for whatever reason, it's just taking time to finish. Go back over to here. So notice there's a bit of a delay. So we know that this bucket is up to date. I don't think it's going to hurt. There we go. It just took a bit of time. I'm going to go ahead and type in clear. And so we have our bucket. We have our role. Okay, coming back over to here. And so the next thing we need to do, I'm just going to put that command here so folks know how we did that. Chmod u plus x bin deploy. It was bin deploy. Okay. But anyway, now that we have it, we need to assume our role. The easiest way is to use the CLI, and so I think that's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and type in AWS. Well, we'll just scroll up here. Make sure we're on version 2 and go over to AWS. You'll notice that sometimes I use version 1 by accident, but for the most part, it always works. I don't think I've ever ran into an issue with using version 1, but you really should use version 2 of the CLI. But in here, we'll have an assume role. Maybe not there. And as per usual, Sam is interrupting me as I'm recording. Not a big deal. I just put her on do not disturb. But here, there should be something for STS. I'm searching STS, and I'm not getting it. Maybe it's an isolate service. Let's go ahead and type that. It is. It is. Okay, so it's not part of IAM. That's fine. And we'll go to assume role, and we'll go down to examples. And here's our example. Go ahead and copy it. We'll go back over to here. We'll paste that in. And so in here, we want to get the ARN for this from CloudFormation. So we'll go back over here, go to our resources, and we'll click through to the role. And from here, we can grab our ARN. It's over here. Just click the copy button, go all the way back here, and we'll go ahead and paste this in. And so now we have our ARN. We can name the session. I'm just going to call this S3 STS Fun, so we know what it is. And so I'm hoping that this is going to work. The other thing that matters is that we have to specify that we are using a profile to do this. That's very, very important. Otherwise, this is not going to work as expected. I'm also going to double check. No, that profile flag will work with assume, I believe. We'll go ahead and copy this. And what I want back is what do you call it? Credentials, right? So, because that's how this works, is that we're going to say, hey, I want credentials, give them back, then I want to utilize them. So the issue that we're having here is that it says we're not authorized to perform the assume role. So we do have assume role in our template here for S3, but that's for this role to be able to access S3, not this user. So in order for this user to be able to access this role, is that we need to have the ability for it to assume roles, and specifically for this ARN. So what I'm going to do is go back over here, and I'm just going to give it permissions to do so. So we're going to have to basically give it permission. Maybe there's an easy way we can add an inline policy. So let's go take a look at our commands in IAM and see what we have available to us. So we'll go here to AWS, we'll type in IAM, and then we'll go to here, and I'm looking for a way of attaching an inline role. There must be some way, inline or policy. I'm just carefully looking here. Maybe it's attach. Because we can do this via the consoles, attach an inline policy. Like if I go over here, and if I go over to my IAM user, I can just add an inline policy, right? And this is the easiest way to do it. So I'm thinking that it's probably attach user policy. Attaches the specified managed policy to the specified user. I don't want to attach a specified policy. I want to attach an inline policy. So I'm just going to carefully look here and see what I can find. So I'm not sure. Let's go ask ChatGPT. So I'll just say, how do I attach an inline policy to a user using the AWS CLI? Let's see what we get. So yes, we of course have to create a policy document first. Then we need to attach the policy with put user policy. Okay, I didn't see that there. Put user policy. Adds or updates an inline policy. That's perfect. So we'll go ahead and grab this. We don't really need ChatGPT's suggestion there. We can just stick with the code over here and go ahead and paste this in. We'll type in SH here. I'll go down below. And so now we need to specify a policy. I'm going to go ahead and add one into this folder file. So we'll say policy JSON. And so in here, we need to create a policy that is going to allow us to assume that specific role. And we need to specify this user. This user is called what? STS machine user. So paste that in here like that. Okay. And so, we're going to assume that user and then assume that policy, but we need to write out what this policy is going to be. So let's go take a look and see if we can find that structure. So say AWS policy IAM structure. And I do not have it memorized, even though I've written policies forever and ever. So what I'm looking for is resource policy. Maybe it's identity policy. Because we just want to assume, be able to assume a role. We could just take a look at maybe what we have in our CloudFormation to quickly find it. I'm just trying to avoid using ChatGPT as it's so easy to utilize it. But let's see what we have here. Because we always have to have a statement, that's for sure, a statement. And in that statement, we'll have an allow, an effect allow. And we want to allow it to have the action of STS AssumeRole, I believe. And then we want to specify the resource, and the resource is going to be that specific ARN. So down below here, it says STS AssumeRole, and then this very specific resource, right? Okay. So that's the statement. Let's go take a look at a full example of an IAM policy. Example policies. Any of them. Maybe there's one for STS in here. No, there's not, but we'll look at any of them. I don't think it really matters which one. So we have our statement. We probably want our version in here. Okay. And so I think that is sufficient, right? Like be able to assume the role of this resource and allow us to do that. You can have multiple statements. So this I think can be an array as well. What we'll do here is just type in clear down below. And we'll go back to our README and we want to go ahead and put this. So I think we wrote it here. Fingers crossed that this works. We'll hit enter. And it looks like it's attached it. Let's go take a look at our user and confirm that. We should always be confirming. And so we have our machine user. And there it is. Notice I had to refresh a few times. Normally AWS shows things instantly, but for whatever reason it wasn't there. And so that looks fine. Is there an issue? I don't know. We'll only know when we try to attempt to access the AssumeRole. So let's go ahead and try this. And again, remember, we're using a profile here. So this user is very limited in terms of their access. So it says, an error occurred when attempting to assume the role operation is not authorized to perform AssumeRole on the resource here. Okay, but we did attach to it this here. So I'm wondering what else it wants. So just give me a moment, okay? So I checked with ChatGPT and it actually produced the exact same thing. So it seems like we should be on the same line. One thing I thought that is that maybe you wouldn't be able to use an inline policy because you don't specify the trust relationship. The policy will allow the specified user to assume the specified role, provided that the trust relationship of the role also allows this user to assume and ensure that the role's trust policy includes a statement that allows the user of the user's account to assume the role. Okay, so maybe that's where we're running into our issue. So if we go back over to our CloudFormation, I mean, that makes sense, right? If we go back over to our CloudFormation, this AssumeRole allows particular resources to assume it. And so it's saying that S3 is allowed to assume this, but what we really need to specify here is actually the user as the principal. So I guess my thought here is that can we leave S3 Amazon AWS.com in here? Probably. And we can specify multiple principals. So let me just try something here. I'm just trying to think about this here because we can get the user's ARN, right? So we can go here and we can get our ARN here. And technically, IAM lets you put different principals here, like root user, users, other stuff like that. I just don't know if we need this. That's what I'm not 100% sure about. But we'll give it a go and we'll see what happens. And we'll see if that works. Because now this is saying like, these are the people that are allowed to assume the role. And it says that the SS machine user should be able to, right? And I guess this would make sense if we had a bucket and we attached permissions to it, but we can't exactly do that. But anyway, so it looks like this is changing. So we'll go ahead and give this a refresh. We have a failure. So clearly I wrote the script wrong. And we'll go take a look and see what it's complaining about. Events. So it says here, the resource handler message is invalid. So this is not possible. At line 145, that's not really useful in terms of the formatting. So not exactly sure what it's trying to say there. But what we can do is if we're trying to get this to work, we can go ahead and try to open up that policy that we have for that role. And we could really just kind of fiddle with it. So this role is called S3. Actually, we have to go to the role because we're mucking with the trust policy here. So we'll look for this one here. What's that role called? My STS fun stack. So we'll go here and type in my STS under roles. My STS fun stack. And we'll take a look at the trust policy. And let's see if we can just edit it. Okay. So we have AssumeRole, and we'll go ahead and add a principal. And we'll choose the principal type as an IAM user. And so here is what it's expecting. I really don't like this because you have to supply those values yourself, but I think the old editor was a lot nicer. We'll go here and I will just place that in here. And then we need to get the machine username, which I already forgot, which is this right here. Okay, we'll say add principal. Oh, and it adds it as AWS. So maybe that's what we had to do. I could have swore that you could add it directly, but maybe that's not the case. So I'm going to go back here, and we are going to bring this down into a new line. So this one's going to just be AWS, like that. And so hopefully that will work. We'll go back down below, hit bin deploy, and we'll see if it takes that. Okay, so we'll just wait here and see what happens. I'm just going to keep refreshing. I'll be back here when there's something, okay? So our update is complete, and I mean, we have our permission in place. We'll go back and take a look and see if we can now assume that role. So if we run this one here, we do copy, and we hit enter, paste. It actually works. So notice that we didn't need to have this S3 Amazon AWS.com because again, the person that is that we're trusting to be able to have this role is this user, unless we run into something that I'm not aware of. But we have our credentials here, and we'll have to extract those out temporarily. So what we'll do is go down below here, and I only want to set them for the time being. So we're going to go back and, well, first we'll copy these three here. Okay, we'll paste them in. And what I want to do here is I want to go back and open up our credentials file. That did not copy right. Just type clear here. And I'll paste that here. And so what we can do is we can now add our profile that is assumed. Okay, and so that should give us some access to our S3 bucket that we had there. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And we'll make our way back over to here. And we'll paste this in here. And then we'll bring this all back to the wall. There we go. This one's obviously going to be called AWS Access Key ID. This one is going to be called this one. And I'm not sure what it is for session token. So we'll go take a look here. We'll say AWS nvars, and it should get us the most common ones we need. So we go down here, and I want the one for session. And I believe it's just called, yeah, it's AWS session token. That's what we need. So we'll go back here, and we'll type in AWS session token. Put equals here, equals. And this one doesn't have doubles around them, so I'll just take the doubles out of here. Double quotations. Okay, and so I'm hoping that this works. I'm going to go ahead and type in clear, and we will get rid of these. And now what I want to do is test this and make sure it works. So I'll go down here below and paste this in. And this one is called assumed. Assumed. We'll go ahead and see what we get. And notice that it is now S3 STS fund. That's the name we named our role session. So that's how we know that we are that. And let's go ahead and see what we can do with our bucket. So we'll do this, and we'll do a test to list out buckets and see what we get. We want to make sure this is the profile. I hit enter. So it says list bucket operations access denied, because I don't think we gave it permissions to list buckets. Or maybe we did. I thought we gave it access to everything. So we go here, and we have permissions for everything, for all possible actions, not even just anything, but everything. So like that'd be S3 : asterisk. So maybe we do need to have the service here so that we can assume permissions for that. So let's go ahead and change this. I did change this to S3 : asterisk because that is a little bit better. That's not why it will work, but it might be because we need to add the service in here. And so I'm going to go ahead and try this again. I don't know if it'll take effect for the existing permissions, so you might have to attempt to regenerate out the temporary permissions and try again. I'm going to go back over to here. I'm going to give this a refresh, and we're waiting for the stack to finish. I'll be back here in just a moment, okay? All right, so our permissions have or should be updated. We can double check that by going over to that role. Okay, and we're going to look at our policy. And that looks fine. We'll look at its trust relationship and notice that now we have s3amazon.com. So let's go ahead and see if that was what we needed. I'm going to go ahead and go back up and hit enter. And notice it says list bucket operation access denied. So the question is, okay, we have this in here, and we have this in here, and the policy says we're allowed to access this specific bucket. But I wonder maybe if it doesn't work because list buckets is for listing all possible buckets. So maybe something we can do to rule that out is to look at this exact bucket and see if we can actually list that specific one. So if I go here and I have ls, we can go get that bucket name, which is up here, and we can see if we just list the contents of that bucket. Okay, so we'll hit enter. Does that work? And so that actually does work. It's showing nothing because there's nothing in that bucket. So I think the reason we're getting this list buckets operation is that we actually need a wildcard here for all buckets like this. So if we want this to work, we'd have to actually do this for the list bucket action. And what we'll do is we'll take out this here again, because I just want to make sure that we understand that we don't necessarily need that. So I'll go ahead and hit up. So just understand this worked. Accessing the bucket worked, just not list buckets. So we'll go back up here and we'll go ahead and do a deploy. And we'll go back over to here and we'll give this a refresh. And I want to see if it's updating, so it's in progress. So we'll just wait a moment for this to finish, okay? All right, that is up to date. And we'll go back over here and we'll try this again. So we'll try to list there. No issues with us removing the s3amazon.com, so we didn't need that. Let's go take a look if we can list all buckets now. And we'll, whoops, that didn't exactly work how I wanted it to, but we'll try this again. ls. Okay, I'll hit up again here and then just try this again. So I just want to clear this part out here. I'm not sure why this is mucking up, but I'm just going to copy this from here. We'll type in clear. Sometimes that happens. The terminal starts acting funny. And so now I'm able to list it. So it was an issue with this here. And again, nothing with that. So yeah, hopefully this is starting to make sense to you in terms of the assumption role. Could I have made this a lot easier by doing click ops in the console and just running a simple CLI command? Absolutely. But, you know, when you're working with cloud, you need to have all these disciplines. And so I just want to take you through as much as I can in terms of difficulty here. But anyway, we're done here. So let's go ahead and clean up. So to clean up, there's a couple things we'll need to do. The first is to get rid of that stack. We can just go ahead here in CloudFormation, tear it down. This is normally how I tear down stacks. I just delete them in the console. And so that will delete. And while that's deleting, we need to get rid of a couple things because we did create a few things that we don't need. So just here, go here and say cleanup. Say tear down your CloudFormation stack via the AWS console, management console. And then there is a couple things that we created. I know there's a spelling mistake there. I do not care. We created this user. And so I'm not sure if we have to delete the policy because it's inline, but let's go ahead and see how we can get rid of that user via the CLI. So let's say AWS CLI IAM, and we'll go here. I'll make sure we're on version 2. I'm going to look for delete. Do we have delete user? We do here. So that is good. We'll go down to examples and we should be able to delete it. And, you know, your policy or your credentials, you can delete that out of your credentials if you like as well. I don't really need to because this environment's going to refresh when I shut it down, which is the advantage of having a cloud developer environment. But I will show you how to get back into that file just in case you forgot. And here it says cannot delete entity, must delete the policies first. So I guess we have to get rid of the policy. We'll go back here and there's probably like delete. Oops. Delete user policy. Go down below. Grab this here. Don't remember what we called the policy, but I'm sure we can find out very easily. This policy was called this. Okay, so we'll go ahead and delete that. And then we'll go delete that. When calling delete user, cannot delete entity, must delete the access key first. Okay, so now we got to delete the access key. Access key. Watch, it'll be like, you have to deactivate it first. I'm sure it will say that, but we'll see what we can do anyway. We need the access key value there. So actually we have a reason to open up our credentials file. I'm going to go up here and find that line that allowed us to open our credentials. Here it is. And we need this access key right here. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if it tells us to deactivate it first, as it likes to do that quite often. Can try to copy and paste this again. It just messed up. There we go. And then I need the username. And we'll paste it in here as such. Okay, we'll bring this over. We'll copy that. We'll hit enter. And so that's now gone. It actually was nice that it didn't tell us to deactivate it first. A lot of times in the console it tells us to do that. And so we're able to clean up. So there you go. For our credentials file, I'm just going to go ahead and clear this out. And I'm just going to commit my code here. Make sure I'm not committing anything sensitive. Double, triple check here. Just make sure you did not put credentials in here by accident. Especially when you're working with credentials, double check here. I mean, this doesn't really matter. It's not really sensitive information, and it's also deleted, so it doesn't matter. I'll go ahead here and just say STS example. There you go, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.